Okay, so with that said, and I look at Bitcoin and Ethereum and like those two specifically, and gold, and obviously a bunch of stocks on a daily basis. And what makes like traditionally you say, okay, when like stocks and bonds are in different directions, and gold is like the safe investment against inflation, all that. So where do you position cryptocurrencies or Bitcoin specifically, or Bitcoin Ethereum, in the spectrum of what possibilities so people can put their money? Like we said, I mean, right now there's little places. So if people
I think
decide to buy Bitcoin, why would you do it? Is it for safety? Is it as an investment? Is it
well, if you're buying
combination?
Bitcoin now, you have to buy it looking at it as a risk asset. Because that's what it is, right? If you're buying Bitcoin, you are basically betting that if you're buying for the long term, if you're trading it different, but if you're like, I'm going to buy Bitcoin and hold it for at least 10 years or longer, your bet is that fiat currencies will go down in value tremendously and will continue to go down, and that Bitcoin will be adopted as a hedge against that in the short term, and then maybe potentially be actually used as a primary currency in many places around the world in the future. That's what you're betting if you're buying Bitcoin. Now, the odds of that happening are not that high. I mean, if I were to put a percentage, there's different things. Will Bitcoin stick around as a hedge? I think the most likely outcome is Bitcoin will become digital gold, meaning that it will exist in tangent to fiat currencies, at least for a long time.
Right.
The odds of Bitcoin actually becoming like the global currency, I don't know. I mean, that's very complicated because that gets political, because you have to have governments willing to give up their own currencies in favor of Bitcoin.
Exactly.
So that's a different question. I think the most likely, and we're looking at timelines too. Could that happen on a 100+ year timeline? Yeah, I think at some point it probably will happen, and maybe it won't be Bitcoin, maybe it'll be a different coin. But I think at some point in the next 100+ years, cryptocurrency will become the global primary currency, and that will happen just because fiat currencies don't last forever, and they'll probably collapse, and then people will turn to Bitcoin or some other cryptocurrency.
All right.
What I think the more likely outcome in the next, like, say 10, 20 years is that Bitcoin will be digital gold, and that you could see Bitcoin achieve a market cap similar to gold in the trillions of dollars, which would mean that it goes up at least another 10x from here.
So that's good, because I was going to segue into this question. Traditionally, people that want to fight inflation and the devaluation of their local currency, whichever country they live in, they try to invest in commodities and some precious metals like gold, silver, maybe others. What is your conversation or your thinking for the person that says, okay, I want to protect myself? And again, we live in the US, which is, I mean, the dollar is going to be always the default, I mean, the de facto currency for all transactions for a long time. But let's say you live in a country that is not like Argentina, Venezuela, or even some European countries.
Yeah, but even if you live in the U.S., I mean,
Yeah, okay, yeah, in the US, but I'm just giving you more extreme cases of today versus the US maybe in the future. But so if you have the option to say, I want to protect myself, what do I do? Do I go into Bitcoin or gold or both, or why one versus the other? Like, there's a lot of people that we know that are hardcore defenders of gold investments, and they don't like cryptocurrencies at all. And there's people that swear by crypto, but they say gold is not an option.
So there's two answers. If you live in, like, Venezuela, for example, where we can see exactly what the people of Venezuela are doing, they are using US dollars and they're using Bitcoin. So if you live in a country where your currency isn't worth anything, the US dollar is still very valuable. right? The US dollar is still the world's reserve currency. So even if it might be inflationary and maybe over the next coming decades it's going to have some turbulence, as of right now, it's still a very good option if you don't have a good currency in your country. And so that's why you see in a lot of these countries, people want US dollars, but now they also want Bitcoin. In Venezuela, there is quite a bit of Bitcoin. Argentina, there's Bitcoin. Nigeria, people use Bitcoin for actual transactions. Now, in the U.S., if you're looking... So first of all, I own gold and Bitcoin. So I own both. I think this idea that you only have one or the other. Gold is good, right? Here's the primary argument between Bitcoin and gold. What's the pro-Bitcoin versus gold argument? Well, what does gold do, and why do people buy gold? Well, gold is not a fixed supply, but it's pretty fixed, right? The only way to get more gold is to mine it, and to mine gold is very expensive and takes a lot. So you're not all of a sudden going to see the supply of gold go up by 10% in 1 year like you might have a fiat go up, right? I mean, when people dig gold, we're talking... annually, they might add like 0.5% to the supply.
That's the explanation. Just to make a little point, that's the explanation that we just said about the government printing money. Back in the days, if there was a crisis like this one or the one that we had in 2008-9, the government could not just say, hey, we're going to mine more gold and send it to everybody, right? Because it was just not possible. So right. Therefore, they could not send money because money and gold were together. Money was just a representation, it was a note that's attached to the gold. Once you separate that basically collateral that valuates your dollar, then now we're just printing money that is not related to anything and just printing money just for the heck of it. So right. That's exactly the point that you're making.
Right. And so the benefit of gold is that it has a nearly fixed supply, and even when it goes up, it's not like the supply is going up that much. And it's just been used forever. I mean, It's been used for thousands of years. It's what you might call it Lindy in those circles, right? So gold's value isn't going anywhere. I own gold too. You can look at the price of gold. It's been a phenomenal hedge against inflation. You can look at the price of gold in the early 1900s versus the dollar and look at it today, and it's pretty much matched inflation. So as inflation goes up, your gold value goes up too. In fact, one of the things, Nick Szabo has a blog that is really good, and one of the things that he wrote when he was researching that was fascinating is that he said if you adjusted for inflation, the pay that the Roman soldiers were getting back in Rome, in the Roman Empire 2,000 years ago, that he was able to kind of calculate how much gold they were getting paid. When you adjusted it out, it was the exact, almost to the thousand, like dollars that soldiers get paid today. We're talking like normal soldiers in America today. Like that is how good gold is as a hedge against inflation.
They don't get paid much, I'll tell you that.
No, they don't get paid a lot, but it was basically the same amount.
Yeah.
And so that was pretty fascinating. So gold works great. Where does gold fall short? Well, you have to store it, and storing it costs money. You have to have it in big bank vaults with men with guns guarding it, or else people are going to come and try to steal it. If you want to transport it, you need to guard a truck or something. It's not that cheap to transport. You're a high value target.
It's a physical asset, so it comes with all the risks of any other physical asset.
It's not easily divisible. So if you want to pay somebody in gold, especially for smaller day-to-day transactions, it's not really practical. So those are the problems with gold. The thing that Bitcoin solves in that is that Bitcoin is digital, so you don't need physical storage, you don't need physical transportation. It's infinitely divisible. It's just numbers on a computer. You don't need to cut little pieces of gold off, right, to pay for your coffee. It's infinitely divisible. So it solves a lot of those problems. The other problem with gold is that it ends up becoming centralized itself, because most people don't want to own physical gold because it's a pain in the ass. So they end up buying into gold trusts. But then ultimately a trust is what? You're trusting that organization,
Institution,
that company,
Which-
that they actually do have the gold you say. So that's
They
those.
also have fees because of the research you said.
they
They have
charge
to
you
store it,
fees.
they have to do this, all that stuff.
So those are the problems with gold.
Right.
Bitcoin basically solves all those problems. That's why I refer to it as digital gold. The biggest argument against Bitcoin is just that it's new. Bitcoin is 11 years old. Gold is thousands of years old. So gold has stood the test of time. Bitcoin has not yet. It hasn't had the chance
Right.
yet. So that's the biggest argument against Bitcoin. It just hasn't been around that long, and we don't know. The other argument against Bitcoin is that it could be replaced by another cryptocurrency. That you could, in theory, anybody can go and just fork Bitcoin, make their own Bitcoin, and if they do it better, then you have your own.
All right, so
So those are the two arguments.
those are good.
Like I said, I own both.
Right.
I think
And
gold is good.
I think diversification is always
Bitcoin is good. As of right now, Bitcoin is more of a risk asset because it's newer and just pure market cap. The global market cap of gold is 7-8 trillion. I think the market cap of Bitcoin, I think, is like 400 billion right now. So just in terms of that, Bitcoin's much more volatile,
much more
and
yeah.
it's a risk asset. But in theory, I think Bitcoin could replace gold, or at least be another option next to